Hi, it's Ian from the Postal Hub Podcast.
And Marek from Last Mile Experts.
And we are the Last Mile Prophets. This is the last word on the last mile. Marek, you love talking about parcel lockers. I've got to get that t-shirt that says I love lockers or whatever it is, so you can wear an I love lockers t-shirt. For a few years now, though, parcel locker manufacturers have been talking about refrigerated options. And we've seen these various options where they might be installed near a supermarket for click and collect. They might be installed in a regular parcel locker location. And then you've got all those sorts of considerations, haven't you, about whether it's in direct sunlight and electricity supply and all of that. But Marek, you were just saying to me before we hit record that there's been, something's happened in your neck of the woods.
Absolutely. So InPost, which is a very topical company at the moment, given this huge IPO.
It's been a week or so since we last mentioned them. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I think that there are a couple of names that we can't avoid mentioning. One of them is Amazon. And as of a couple of weeks ago, InPost is probably the other, if you're talking about the last mile in Europe. But anyway, InPost has announced an offensive with refrigerated parcel lockers. And I think it's an interesting topic because it's just so very difficult to do. And coming back to what you said, you're right. You've got all these issues. Okay, where do you put the thing? It's much more expensive, more complex, requires far more power, many more bits that can go wrong. But then you've got two types of locker. So you've got a locker that is effectively, and this is what InPost is using, a traditional locker that's just refrigerated. So my new word, which I read today, retrofitted, I think that's the word. And then you've got the sort of thing that Retail Robotics or Cleveron do, which is very, I would say, high-tech, quite expensive, bespoke machine. And that one, by the way, on top of the locations you mentioned, I know that in France, Retail Robotics have got machines on the high street, which are sort of a satellite to a store. So you can pick up your groceries from one of these machines somewhere in central Paris, I believe. So it's pretty cool. But let's talk about why it's difficult. How about that? So first and foremost, before you even start, you've got chill chain, which is a wee bit of a nightmare, the last mile. You get to the machine, you've got all this complexity. You've got the fact that, you know, the ambient part is okay. The chill part, you're not going to have the refrigerated part. You're not going to have so many. And, you know, what happens if someone doesn't collect on time? Okay, you're going to have to remove them like you do with a parcel. But then once something's removed from a refrigerated locker, can you keep the chill chain? Is it useless? Very complex process, very expensive machine. But guess what? I think I have an alternative. And I think you might guess what it is.
Oh, if it flies in the air, I don't want to hear about it.
I promise, Ian, it is not the D word.
I know what it is. You're going to talk about Amazon. You're going to talk about Smartlocks and in-garage delivery.
Absolutely. So I think there is a role for these refrigerated lockers, particularly if there's close cooperation with grocery retailers. But in the short term, something that is a hell of a lot cheaper because it costs around about $250 a pop.
I guess the counter argument would then be that you can, so the Amazon Key, for example, or any other smart lock system, you can access the garage, and if there's a fridge in there, deliver food directly into someone's fridge. For apartment dwellers, not such an option. So it's a solution that will only work where you have the garage. But then I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, what about smart locks on an apartment door? Is that what you're going to say?
Well, exactly. So what's happened, by the way, because this is a quite old research now, about 2 years ago, but I spoke to the guys at Assa Abloy who did some tests in a few markets. And from what I recall, they shared with me something like 2/3 of the people in their homes, not in a garage, so letting people in their homes, really liked it. So first time, if I remember correctly, what happened is the homeowner would be waiting, even though theoretically he shouldn't be at home, to check out the courier. When he saw that the courier was a nice guy like Ian Kerr, smiling and looking pretty sensible, he said, no problem at all. Yeah. And you know what? Then they stopped coming home. And when Assa Abloy wanted to take the smart lock away, they said, no, it's a mine. We love it. So I think it's a question of habits, getting people used to it. I agree that the garages are a no-brainer because it's a lot safer and easier. But I can actually imagine this working in all other places. It does have one disadvantage, though.
What's that?
Instead of having multiple parcels or multiple fresh deliveries.
All right, yeah, that's the drop density, yeah.
On the other hand, you do have the advantage that it's 100% successful delivery. So although in lockers, usually it's the case anyway, with fresh, it's always a bit more complex in terms of timing. So
I suppose there's another part of this, though, that we as an industry need to be talking about with like property developers and housing developments, is to talk to developers about having maybe residential lockers installed in an apartment block. Do you want to have, in addition to residential parcel lockers that might be in a foyer or an entranceway or whatever, a refrigerated locker? Now, it doesn't make it any less expensive to run, but if it's then close to the consumer and the consumer can overcome some of the trust issues. Now, I know you just said that there aren't trust issues, but there still may be some people, like me, who don't want to let people into their houses. So I do think, though, it's this conversation we need to start having is, how can we make this efficient? And I know I'm bringing a lot into this conversation, Marek, but when we also talk about smart cities initiatives, low emission zones and things like that, and trying to get people, these are local governments trying to get people out of their cars and trying to reduce the number of delivery vehicles on the road. Could refrigerated lockers play a part in that?
I think they could. My take is that step one will be the lockers and sometimes the more complex robots that you'll find right next to a large grocery outlet. So I think that's the next step in the drive-through. So I can imagine that's going to be step one, plus this idea of having machines, satellite machines in urban areas, allowing people to collect their groceries. I can imagine that happening.
And it could also be something that, the smaller grocers who don't want to invest in large numbers of, expensive supermarkets might find this to be a way to expand their reach into suburbs where they don't currently have reach. It might be that the pure online players who don't have supermarkets might say, well, refrigerated lockers or robots like our friends at Retail Robotics put together might be...
I agree, Ian, and I think there are loads of permutations and combinations. It could be that, for example, where people traditionally were used to shopping on Sundays and it's been stopped, as is the case in my home country, a grocery retailer may say, okay, he pops it on Saturday night at 11:59 into the locker, so he's passed all the trading rules, and Sunday someone can go and pick it up. So I think there are a lot of opportunities. My view is that people are going to get smarter and smarter with the big machines, and our friends at Cleveron and Retail Robotics and all the other smart cookies out there are going to develop machines that are ever cheaper, ever more customer centric. On the other hand, I believe in the smart locks. And by the way, if we've got anyone listening in who wants to do a pilot, I am really up for this one, because we need pilots in this space, and I've got a few companies that have got the technology. So please look me up. You can drop a line below or my email address, which we can maybe add, because I'm really interested in someone, because I love this space and I think it is the next gen technology.
So maybe contact Marek via LinkedIn to talk to him about all of this. Marek, there's always going to be a discussion around this because it is sort of this intersection of parcel lockers and fresh delivery. And I'm not sure, this isn't the last we're going to hear about it. There will continue to be more trials, won't there?
I think so. This is, as Churchill said, it's not the end nor the beginning of the end, but the end of the beginning as far as grocery lockers are concerned, in my view.
So comment below. I'll put Marek's LinkedIn profile down below if you're watching us on YouTube, so you can click through to that and drop Marek a line via LinkedIn. And yes, do share your comments on refrigerated lockers and fresh delivery. Marek Różycki, thanks for being on The Last Mile Profits today.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everyone.